stay there when people move.
Exactly. I'll just give it a few seconds to allow people to join.
So, Alex, I'm not doing any admitting of people. You're doing that, are you?
Oh, they're coming in now.
Is Martin doing that?
Yes, yeah. I'll just give it a few more seconds.
On full screen. No, I am.
All right, well, I think we'll kick off there. So good morning and welcome to day 3 of World Water Week. And thank you for joining us bright and early for this session, Uganda's innovative drive to achieve SDG 6.1. My name is Alex Staples. I'm the Program and Partnerships Officer for Whave Solutions in Uganda, and I'm delighted to be here in Stockholm this week with my colleague Faith Tebesigwa. Today, you'll also be hearing from my colleague, Dr. Adam Harvey, the founder and CEO of Whave Solutions, and Adam is dialing in from Uganda today. As we move through the session, please post questions in the chat box and we'll answer them as we go or during the Q&A at the end of the session. So let's dive right in. In this session, we're going to look at the Ugandan government's national framework for rural and maintenance, focusing on how it is being implemented, what it requires from stakeholders, the challenges that it's encountered, and importantly, how it can unlock accelerated impact. We'll then move on to look at a testing program Whave is conducting on improving point-of-use water quality using traditional and modern hygiene interventions in rural communities. But starting with some context, we know that in Uganda, water infrastructure is reaching rural communities. However, that infrastructure faces long periods of non-functionality from 3 to 4 months or longer, which is due to the lack of widespread service providers. And so too often, we will still see girls missing school to access the water point in the next community or resorting to unsafe water sources. And while we see that the future of Uganda's rural water is in pipe supply, the reality is that much of rural Uganda will still be dependent on hand pumps for many decades to come. And so successful rural water maintenance and operation must factor in hand pump infrastructure too. So Whave Solutions was founded in 2011 as a Ugandan social enterprise, and its mission is to build a best practice rural water utility and is currently operating a model that functions for both hand pumps and pipe systems across 17 districts in Uganda. And at this point, I'd like to introduce Adam to take us through this first section. Over to you, Adam. Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. That's great. So let me just go through a few slides which kind of explain the Ugandan government's professional management model. As Alex has just said, as you can see from this, we have quite sophisticated now mapping tools. This is mWater, which is a very well-developed tool that we're using. Other people are using as well in the country. What you see there is a mapping of a pipe system that Whave recently installed, mapped by mWater, and you can see that it supplies, actually that's a school, a tap stand at a school, and it supplies household connections directly and other tap stands that rural communities can use. That's just to reassure everybody that we are working with maximizing pipe systems as fast as possible. There's a general understanding that hand pumps are awkward from the point of view of functionality assurance. Although, as Alex has said, they clearly are part of the picture for many years to come. So next slide. So yes, we've said this already. Mini pipe networks and hand pumps are being addressed by the government's framework for operation and maintenance. Governments, because of the decentralization strategy of Uganda, our boards.
Oh, I think we. Sorry, Adam. I think we lost you just for a second there.
Yes, and the slides are not moving.
Oh, sorry. I think we just want to recap that last point you made. I think we missed it.
Yes, basically that the Ugandan government is operating its national O&M framework through district governments because of decentralization. It has been very well established in Uganda. So it's through district governments. And are you expecting? Could you go to the next slide, Alex? Yes, and this slide shows that the principle of district local government interacts with communities directly, while also contracting a rural utility, which is locally called an area service provider, to provide the services to communities. So this is triangular structure which has been established in the national O&M framework. We'll get on to the key performance indicators in a moment. So next slide, please. So what is Whave doing? Whave is one of a group of three international organizations. We're actually a local organization. Whave is a Ugandan social enterprise without any office outside Uganda. But we work together with some other internationals. And what we're doing is providing a business planning tool for the district governments and for emerging 24/7 service providers, the rural utilities, to help with understanding the finances and making sure that we do achieve financial sustainability. Performance monitoring, we're helping with that, as you've just seen through the mapping and through developing KPIs, which we'll mention in a moment, performance indicators, and finally, documentation and guidance materials. So next slide. And where Wave in particular works in the 18 districts, you can see spread across Uganda on this map. I should try and remove this. I can't see the whole thing. There, yeah, that's right. Yeah, so as you can see, we're actually working in clusters. Most of these clusters are of 3 districts joining each other. One of them actually is expanding to 5 districts now, 4 are showing there in the Busoga area. And that's very deliberate for financial and economic scale reasons. So the business planning tool, why does Wave work in these areas? And we've been developing this piloting exercise for the last 10 years. The reason is that we really, there's a need for demonstration that the 24/7 assurance principle is actually feasible. Is it actually possible to make sure that any hand pump and any solar pump, any pipe network in a rural area which is hard to reach with difficult road conditions is actually fixable, is actually maintainable in such a way that downtime never exceeds 24 hours. So we've been working to investigate that question. And also, what is the cost of achieving this level of assurance, which is really a SDG 6.1 goal, universal access to water 24/7, is also now a Ugandan government goal. Is it affordable? What does it cost? And is it can it be paid for through service fees which are socially acceptable and affordable? And finally, can it be done in a financially sustainable way? So we've been working to answer those 3 questions in the last, actually, it's now more than 10 years, about 11 years. So next slide. This is the results we publish. We share with government and NGOs, and we publish frequently. We publish in detail as well. This is the summary. The result is actually pretty good from the point of view answering the question, is 24/7 assurance feasible in rural areas amongst hand pumps? This slide actually reflects a few solar pumps, but mostly hand pumps. Certainly within 2 days, we've consistently achieved 100% functionality, and in some areas 100% within 1 day, but generally over 95% within 1 day. And in You can see in Busoga there's a drop to 85%. So there are reasons for that. And obviously, we're working on arriving at over 95% everywhere. You can see the numbers are involved here. 1,000 communities spread over 4 regions. About more than 300,000 people are being served with 24/7 water to this level of achievement. And it's given a very good evidence base, basically, for the government to both develop the national policy for O&M and also to implement it properly. So next slide. So answering these 3 questions, we've just seen an answer to the first question. 100% functionality assured within 2 days is feasible. This is done through external verification and external monitoring. And over 90% within 1 day looks very achievable as well. And what is the cost? What we're finding, we'll come back to that in a moment, is that the communities we work with are willing and able to sign agreements and to pay around what averages out at about $0.50 per household per month for domestic fees. There are also very good earnings from commercial fees, from builders, from businesses, from schools, from health centers, which add to that income. And so that commitment to spend around $325 a year for maintenance is already in place. Compliance is not quite there yet. We'll see that in a moment. Compliance is actually around 50% at the moment. And there are reasons we'll go into that. Finally, are the financial sustainability. We mentioned that we're working on business planning for all the district governments and for emerging utilities. What the basic output, the overall output of the business planning process, which is a collective process where Whave is leading the details, is that break-even is achievable for rural water utilities within 5 years, and then there is a surplus generated afterwards, which is available for expansion. So that's an important outcome, and we can talk about that perhaps in the questions. So next slide. So is financial sustainability possible? At the moment, the costs are higher than the projected $325 per year because of low-scale operations. Those 1,000 communities that we work in are spread across 18 districts. And so most districts only have a 10 to 20% penetration of serviced communities paying bills. As a result, we haven't achieved saturation, and our costs are high. So we're actually averaging around $470 per community per year, rather than the projected 325. And we're receiving only half of that, or less than half, around 218 on average. So there's quite a big gap between cost and revenue at the moment. So what is the solution? It's become very clear that saturation is an important solution. And this is the reason the government is now very keen to implement the policy with the help of NGOs, donors, and emerging service utilities. Saturation means basically that officially all rural communities will be enrolled into the O&M framework, and then there'll be a tipping point where it will become normal to pay. For the simple reason that if your neighbor is paying, you're under social pressure to pay. Anyone not paying is kind of letting their neighbors down. So that's a critical change from a current situation where it's very possible to not pay because there are neighboring communities that are not paying. It's possible to walk to neighboring communities and get free water, to a situation where that is no longer the case. And of course, saturation has another very important effect, which is that the unit cost reduces significantly because of economy of scale. So that 470 is expected to drop to 325 with saturation. But the other key solution that we are working with the community, the whole WASH community now is interested in this whole process of implementing the governance framework, is what we're calling the driving license principle. The driving license principle is very, very critical here, because what's happening is communities are often offered free repairs, offered new construction, a new hand pump, a new solar pump, without any obligation to show that they can maintain it. So you could argue that that's a bit like having a driving license before you get into a car and drive it. If you don't have a driving license, there's quite a strong chance that the car will be demolished within a few months or within a year of when you set off. And there's a kind of parallel there, because it's generally recognized that most of these water installations are not functioning properly due to small repairs not being done even within 1 year. And then there's no proper system no working system, no functioning system for making sure that they continue to function, except perhaps after fairly long downtimes, sometimes very long downtimes. So that problem is very similar to having a driving license before you drive. If the O&M framework establishes a principle amongst all donors and implementers building new water points and rehabilitating, restoring old ones, that there must be a maintenance agreement in place and a payment of service fees, initial deposit payment made, and a full understanding of the maintenance principle before, and in fact as a condition of the construction, then we will have solved the problem significantly. And this means that donors would build this principle into their funding rules, for example, giving enough time for their field implementers to talk to communities, to get engaged with the local government, mobilizers, and the service utilities, and expect communities to sign up and pay for maintenance before CapEx is spent. And in fact, only spend CapEx where the agreement is in place. So that is the driving license principle. And that will make a huge difference. Contract governance is also going to be very important and quite a challenge, which is that the utilities will only function well if their performance contracts are properly governed and their key performance indicators are actually tracked properly, and they're taken to account. They're held to account for low performance. High performance is assured through tracking and publication of results. So those three things, saturation, the driving license principle, and contract governance, have been identified as the key solutions for arriving at financial sustainability. So next slide. So there we have the same thing I've been saying, kind of illustrated, the shift from the cost revenue gap to the break even, and a summary of the steps I've just mentioned. The saturation of all water points in each district, donors and field implementers adopt the driving license principle, and donors finance. Yeah, donors financing service performance monitoring is a temporary need, because there's quite a shift towards the expertise and the technical assistance required for good performance monitoring. After a period of some years, that would be financed through local government or through surplus revenue from ASP operations, from service utility operations. So next slide. This is just finishing off on the last point about service performance monitoring. Earlier on, we saw a slide showing piped water mapping together with hand pumps. This one shows hand pumps. This is really to demonstrate again that with the help of platforms like mWater, it is possible. DWASH is the Whave implementational facility within mWater. it is possible to track functionality. A number of people who are being served, a key performance indicator for the district and for the service provider, reaching 100% as soon as possible, certainly within 5 years, saturation. The percent of repairs which are achieved within 24 hours. Of course, preventive maintenance is a key part of all of this to make sure that there aren't any repairs needed. But there will always be some repairs needed that need to be done within 24 hours. And the compliance, the payment compliance, with a target also of 100%. And then we would expect water quality monitoring. We already do water quality testing to be part of the requirements, and customer satisfaction to be monitored. And then there's several, there's discussion about targets and intermediate targets. So next slide. So thank you very much. And of course, we're open to questions. What I've just been through, is quite detailed stuff. And we're very happy to explain it in a few minutes. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. And I thought we might pause there. And if there are any questions, I don't see any in the chat box, but if you did want to unmute and ask before we move on to the next session, which is a bit of a change in tact. So I'll just pause for a second. Go ahead, Sadiq, if you want to unmute. Oh, no worries. Adam, the question is, who actually does the repair, Whave or the area service provider?
Yeah, thanks, Sadiq, for that question. That's a very good question, actually, because Whave is taking the role now of providing technical assistance for these various things that we've been talking about, and we are helping to train new service providers, and we'll be supporting them and mentoring them. So the payment is the repair is done always by the service provider, and that includes capital maintenance repairs. In other words, big components, replacement of big components, as well as minor repairs and preventive maintenance, always done by the service provider under the O&M framework, not by government office or by a support organization like Wave. So thanks, Eric. I can see your question. Active strategies to try and address the low payment. Yes, those are active strategies. Saturation is a strategy which we are working very closely with NGOs and with government on getting an official saturation approach, where every single rural community with a solar pump or a hand pump will be enrolled into this system. That's a key strategy. The others, as I mentioned, the driving license principle is a key strategy which requires discussion with donors and with field implementers, even candidate MPs, candidate parliamentarians looking for votes are actually field implementers. So there's a lot of work to be done in talking to NGOs, donors, and field implementers like electioneering politicians. And then finally, performance monitoring. We're working on that. So those are the strategies. I'm not seeing all the questions. Let me open up my box here. Okay. So area service providers, small commercial. Yes, they are small commercial enterprises. That's correct. There's a debate now as to whether they are both non-profits and profit, constituted organizations. At the moment, it looks as if they could be both non-profit and ordinary commercial enterprises. And then, Justice, your question, primarily deal with repairs of hand pumps. No, the principle is very, very strong that we are moving to piped water universally for rural areas. Therefore, all service providers and government officers helping to implement the national framework are all looking at shifting from upgrading hand pumps to solar pumps as fast as possible. And we would like to see hand pumps disappear, to be honest, all of us in the WASH community in Uganda. And we would ideally like to see them disappear within 10 years. However, we are realistic, and we don't think that will happen. We think they're probably still with us and probably serving water to 10 million up to 20 million people, even in 20 years' time, or even in 30 years' time, because of the difficulty of cost and hydrology and so forth with pipe systems. So it is for both pipes and hand pumps. It's inclusive. And one should be aware that pipe systems have similar functionality problems. And the kind of a service provider who is able to provide functionality assurance for hand pumps is also has the same skills and organizational structure as one helping a pipe system. So there's really no difference between a rural pipe system and a rural hand pump from the point of view of how to maintain it and who maintains it and how it's maintained. I mean, we can come back to that question. It's an important question. So no, it's not only hand pumps, it's pipe systems. Dinah, I didn't get your question. And Julita, entrepreneurs or employees, they're entrepreneurs. The service providers are commercial, as we said earlier on, commercial enterprises. They're companies in their own right, both non-profit and ordinary commercial. So they're not employees of some government body or some NGO. NGOs are busy now registering local non-profit or ordinary, helping to start and train, like Whave is helping to start and train local service providers. I hope that's answered the questions. Please, if I haven't answered them, please put in your chat box again.
Perfect. Thanks, Adam. Well, we'll move on for now and do the next section, and then there'll still be time for further Q&A at the end. So coming to point of use water quality. So complementary to service provision, we're going to look now at a testing program Whave is carrying out to improve point of use water quality, or really water quality in the home in rural communities. So through Wave's work as a service provider, we have observed that despite greater access to clean drinking water and hygiene services in rural Uganda, water is too often contaminated through handling in the home. And for this testing program, we have identified a series of hygiene interventions, many of which incorporate local traditions. And the testing program will involve running field trials for each of these initiatives that you see on the screen to understand their suitability and effectiveness for positively impacting water quality. So we'll go on now to look at each of these in more detail. So the first intervention is hygiene monitoring for behaviour change. And what we've observed is that previous behaviour change campaigns can bring about improvements for a small amount of time. However, people are quick to revert to old habits. But from our work, we've found that revisiting regularly to reinforce the behaviour prevents relapse and allows the suitable time for new habits to form. And is achievable because we're visiting these communities regularly anyway through our service provision work. So within this program, one of the initiatives we'll be advocating for is using drying racks, as you can see in this picture, and encouraging that they are kept outside, washing their jerry cans, keeping their clean jerry cans outside. And then we will conduct routine visits and use M-Water to track our observations. The second initiative is ladles. We've observed a significant water quality issue from finger dipping into water pots. And this photo demonstrates the issue where the woman is using the plastic cup to scoop the water out of the pot, and in doing so, her hand goes into the drinking water. And you can see in this photo as well, she is using one pot for dipping and transferring to another cup. But in many cases, the same cup is used for dipping, that is used for drinking, and then shared between people, and herein lies the problem. So ladles are a promising alternative because it prevents the user's hand from touching the water, and still keeping the water in the traditional clay pot. And ladles have been traditionally used. So originally they were cut from gourd shells in the communities. So it's bringing back that previous knowledge. Sort of complementary to that, or on the same sort of track, keeping with pots, is an initiative that we've called Pots with Taps. And it is as it sounds. So this initiative has involved training local potters, as you can see on the photo on the right, to make traditional clay pots in the same way, but with the addition of a small plastic tap, like the sort of tap you'd find on a water cooler, in the bottom, as you can see on the photo on the left. And this initiative shows high potential because it is just a small adjustment to the traditional pot, which is very widely used in communities. Next, we have hand wash stations. So in the hand wash station in this photo, you can see the blue tub has the water, the pink tub underneath is the sink, and the dirty water flows through to the bucket at the bottom. So we are still seeing that hand washing is not as common practice as it should be in communities. And these hand washing stations are made in Uganda and have additional benefits of providing youth employment. And we're training youth marketing agents to sell them and becoming hand washing advocates in their communities. And this business shows a lot of viable potential and sustainability to move forward as well. Then we have leaves. This initiative is about growing soft, large leaves near latrines. In the picture, you can see how proud the older gentleman is to use the leaf. And that's really because that's what his generation was using. We have found already that some communities do view this as a step backwards, even if they don't have access to toilet paper. And some young people in particular feel that this is uncivilized. However, we believe that they may be using the leaves in secret. So this program will really be about seeing if we can, as well as establishing to them to grow them, is normalizing leaf use among young people again. And finally, we have hygiene illustrated cards. So these are conventional hygiene training cards, but we have remade them to illustrate the new initiatives we'll be testing, including ladles and pots with taps. And so this initiative will really complement some of the other initiatives to support uptake as well. And as we roll out these interventions, we will set a baseline and then carry out regular E. coli testing to monitor for improvements and see whether the initiatives are receiving good uptake and whether behaviour change occurs. And of course, we expect that different communities will resonate with different initiatives. So I'll pause there. We also have Faith, my colleague, on the call, who's in the field on the ground. So we'll be also available to answer any questions that you have on this, or any questions in general, what Adam presented as well. Anything to add from you, Adam?
That's fine. Thanks, Alex. That's great.
I can see. There is a question. What is the water quality at the pump of source, e.g. at the water pump? Faith, would you like to answer this question? Just make sure Faith's online. Faith, are you there? I think you're on mute. Oh.
Let me jump in, Alex.
Yeah.
It's a very important question. Yeah. The water quality at the water pump itself does vary. And Uganda still has a lot of what we call locally here shallow wells, meaning it's defined in different ways, actually, by different organizations. But basically wells which are vulnerable to rainwater ingress. And we do see also even wells which are not vulnerable to rainwater ingress, which are often contaminated with levels of E. coli above 10 fecal, FCUs per 100 milliliter, even up to 100 and 150 sometimes. We even see some problems with deeper wells down to 15, 20 meters even, which is probably mainly due to pit latrine density of population. It's causing a problem. So pit latrine can be dug outside rules, government rules. So what we do is we have to do the testing of the boreholes as well as the households, of course, and we inform the local government, the health inspector, and so forth. And then it becomes their job to make sure that a well is decommissioned if it can't. But we do shock chlorinate. If we do take measures, but even shock chlorination doesn't always work. So there is a problem with shallow wells throughout the whole country with contamination. And obviously, when we do this E. coli testing that we're talking about to look at household contamination, we make sure that we are excluding the any contamination that's coming from the borehole itself. But I hope that's answered the question for Faith. But Faith, you could step in and add to that. Outcomes of the E. coli test. We don't know yet. We've done a lot of this hygiene work in the past, but we've never done a systematic attempt to compare hygiene interventions with E. coli testing. So we'll come back next year to Stockholm with some preliminary results. How long have you conducting? Okay, yeah, as I said, we will initially run this for 1 year, but I expect probably we'll have to add another year because it's complicated and difficult and also very important. And so we'll probably add another year. Arsenic, no, there are very few issues of arsenic in Uganda. We do have some areas where iron is a problem, but we simply can't afford to do everything. It gets too complex and too expensive. And so we think E. coli is an important starting point. Do they drink the water directly or treat water? No, they don't treat the water. There's very little boiling. They know that they should be boiling, and they sometimes boil for someone who's sick or for a visitor. But in general, boiling is not used as a treatment method, and there is no other treatment method available. Obviously, in town, people are buying filters to some extent. In rural areas, the purchasing of filters is very, very rare up to now. Is water done at point source only? Yeah, the whole purpose of this presentation was to illustrate testing at household, specifically at household, to add to testing at the mouth of the pump. Fluoride, again, has been noticed in some areas, but again, for the same issue, we've decided to focus on E. coli for the moment, and it's not possible financially to include investigation of fluoride. Water quality testing is carried out at hand pump and also household. Yes, thank you. That's correct. Shallow wells equipped with hand pumps. Yes, as I said earlier on, the vulnerability to contamination is pretty serious with shallow wells, especially if they're vulnerable to rainwater ingress when the clay layer, when they're hand dug. Basically, hand dug wells are still quite common, and they are contaminated by rainwater. Tends to be contaminated because it runs off from the fields where cow and animal and goat defecation is common. There's a lot of contamination in rainwater runoff. So yes, shallow wells are very vulnerable to contamination. Is that all the questions, or Alex, back to you?
Someone did have their hand up, but it seems to have disappeared now. But please go ahead.
Yes. Yes, please. Let me go ahead. I thought I needed to explain my question. I can't just fit in the chat. Thank you for the presentation. I think in terms of the, particularly the part of the hygiene, very interesting innovations.
I've lost him for a second. Can you go again, Finiso? There was, Adam, a question I think you might have missed regarding fluoride issues. Question on.
Yeah, fluoride is something we are not looking at. We simply don't have the budget to cover all possible pollutants. So we're just being realistic. We think a lot of progress can be made by focusing on E. coli, and we simply don't have the scope, the finance, and the ability to deal with every kind of contaminant. So fluoride is not included in our program.
Yes, go again, Finiso.
Okay, so my question is related to the many hygiene practices, particularly the technologies which are traditional in nature. I do think things like the racks, I think very important, that they are being upgraded from wooden maybe to metal, which is a very good innovation, and even some of the innovations to the pots. But I wonder issues to do with leaves, encouraging people to go back growing the trees for use of leaves. I do think that some of these things, they still have the potential to contaminate or not even actually being hygienic. As we've, are there no alternative technologies that you can promote? Maybe cheaper tissues, maybe something else that you think would be closer to hygiene. And related to that, I believe that when people have been properly educated, they will invest in what they know is the right thing. In your component, I didn't really see a bigger point of the hygiene education, because I think that the moment you educate more people, maybe they would even afford things which they were ignoring in the past. So that's the part on the hygiene. On the area part of the presentation, I think I needed to ask something on the break-even point, which you say it's in the future, whether it's in 3 years, whether it's in 5 years, which I think is a good point. But do we have examples somewhere where this break-even has really been achieved? Because we've been implementing these things for year in, year out. Where are you really getting this confidence that there will be a break-even point? Thank you. Over.
Yeah, thank you very much. I can take that question. It's a very good question, and you're absolutely correct to put your finger on it. The reason why we gave those three, challenges for achieving break-even is because they are serious challenges. Saturation has not happened ever, as you said yourself. And the driving license principle is actually in the government documents. It may be in many other documents in the WASH community, amongst the donors and the NGOs, but it is not practiced. Driving licenses do not exist. People get capital expenditure on water points, solar pumps, hand pumps, without any requirement that they maintain them, although it's on paper. And there's often a meeting where it's discussed, maybe maintain the pump and so forth, but it is not, and there's no conditionality. Drive. If you where service companies have been contracted to take care of rural pipe systems, they haven't been monitored very well at all. Their performance has been low. They've carried on working. The whole thing has collapsed after a while. Uganda has been through this whole thing already in small towns and rural growth centers. And it's partly because no proper accountable performance contracting has been conducted. So those three things I'm talking about: saturation, driving license principle, which is a problem for donors. It's an issue for donors as much as for people working in Uganda and government in Uganda. And the final one, good performance tracking. All three of those, they don't exist at the moment. So that answers your question. No, the answer is it hasn't happened yet. And we're working on something new here. Those three things are very new. And, that's really a good point of discussion. I think we have one or two more questions.
Yeah, there was a question about the toilet leaves. And I'm happy that somebody's placing a finger about the leaves. Yeah, the leaves is something that is very sensitive in the areas of Uganda. However, we still have people in the rural areas that still use the leaves because we still have a problem with open defecation where people still go to the bush. And getting to the point of people using probably cheaper options like toilet paper may not be something that will easily come in the rural areas. We also have people still after getting to the bushes, they do not clean themselves and they're just walking away. So we are educating people that when we have the available materials like the leaves, it's okay to use them, but also educating them to make it normal for them to do the annual cleansing when they go to they use the latrines. We also do the educating bit of it. You say that you have not seen so much about educating people here, maybe about the mindset change. That is why we have the illustration cards that Alex showed us, and they're actually in the local language. So we actually do a lot of educating the people about these issues in the communities. You can see about the hand washing, using the ladles, washing their jerry cans, washing their hands. So we actually do a lot of educating the rural communities when we are doing our work when it comes to hygiene. Thank you.
Yes, and the question about the amount of water for hand washing, I think, is an important question as well. It's quite correct. If you're going to collect water and have to carry a heavy jerry can back home, you're not going to want to use a lot of water to wash your hands. So that is a limitation. And in fact, that is one of the main reasons why we have been pushing hard for pots with taps and with leaves, because that reduces the amount of contamination that is required from water hand washing. And I think there has been too much of an emphasis on hand washing in rural communities, which is limited, as you say, very, very correctly. The comment in the chat box is limited by in the hand pump situation where water is very limited. So we need to look at other solutions, not just hand washing. That's quite correct.
Adam, there was one question just before that in the chat box as well.
Oh, I did look at that question, but I didn't get the question. Do things like smart in water resource management can help you? But yes, I mean, we are talking about smart technologies. The mapping process now is extremely efficient and cost effective because we use smartphones, and also we're using remote sensors for functionality detection. So, for example, there are a couple of technologies. Whave has something like 500 smart sensors which detect functionality issues before a pump breaks remotely. So we can see what's happening with pumps online on our computers without having to expensively visit the hand pump itself. And that's saving a lot of money. So there's also e-payment. There's potential for e-payment on hand pumps, which can improve financial sustainability very well. So yes, many smart technologies are playing an important role now. I mean, anyone who feels their question hasn't been answered, please go ahead and put your hand up or put another chat into the chat box.
We'll give it a second. Okay, well, while we wait just to see if there's any last final questions, I will just conclude by saying thank you. Thank you for joining us early in the morning. Adam and my email is cut off, but Adam's email is there. If you do have any questions or if you would like a copy of the slides, please do send us an email. As I mentioned, Faith and I are here in Stockholm this week, so yeah, if you'd like to discuss anything further, please give me a message on LinkedIn. But otherwise, we will conclude the session there, and please enjoy the rest of. Oh yeah, thank you. Please enjoy the rest of the conference.